Alright. Working these out, when we're finding the GCF, all we're doing is finding what goes equally into both terms. I've got a 4 and a 6. 2 going to be the biggest thing that goes in. I've got an X and an X3. X is going to be the biggest thing that goes in. I've got an Y3 and a Y2 rather. Y2 is the biggest thing that's going to go in. When we're finding the GCF, all we're doing is finding the biggest thing that goes into both terms. 2, same question. I've got a 15 and a 9. 3 is going to be the biggest thing that goes into 15 and 9. A2, A1, so just A. B1, B2, so just B. And again, because I've just got two expressions looking to see what's the GCF, 3AB is the largest number that goes into both terms. Number 3, I got a 15 and a 30. 15, biggest thing goes into both. This one has an X, this one does not, so I can't take an X. They both have two Y's to take, so I'm going to take both of them. Right here, I've got 10 and 16, so 2. I've got A and A2, so just A, and then B4 and B, so just B. And that's it for those. Let's move it on up. Number 5. This one, factor out the GCF. You're going to tell me what comes out, and you're going to tell me what's left. So in this case, I've got a 4 and an X that's going to come out. They both have a 4. They both have an X. And then very important, I'm going to tell you what stays inside. So when I divide that 4x out of the first term, I'm left with an X. When I divide the 4x out of the second term, I'm left with a 2. Alright, that's us factoring out the greatest common factor. Find what's common, and then tell me what's left. On this one, they don't put the squared first. Notice it's in the back, so they both have a 3x. Now, when I pull the 3x out of the first term, I still have a 1 left. 3x divided by 3x is 1. And then 9x squared divided by 3x is going to be 3x. On this one down here, I've got 6y squared, 12x squared y. They both have a 6. They both have at least 1x. They both have at least 1y. And then I'm going to set it up. What's left after I pull those bad boys out, I'm going to have a y in my first one. And then my second one, once I divide that 6xy out, I'm going to have a 2x. On number 8, you'll notice we don't have any terms that we can pull out. We don't have a number that we can pull out, but they both have an x. I'm going to remove that x, be left with a 7x in the first part, and be left with an 11. Now, very important, none of these numbers, or none of these expressions rather, have an equal sign. Because they don't have an equal sign, we are not solving for anything. So our answer is finished right here. On the next page, however, we are most definitely solving for x. So this first one, we're going to start it off just like we did the other ones. We're going to take and pull what's common. They both have a 2, they both have an x. And then on the inside of our parentheses, we're left with an x, and we're left with a 3. And different from the last problem, you've got that equals 0. Because it's equal to 0, you can solve it. I've got two numbers. I've got 2x, and it's being multiplied by x plus 3. The product of these two numbers is 0. Since the product is 0, one of the two numbers has to be 0. It does not matter which one, so either 2x or x plus 3 is going to be 0. If the 2x is 0, x itself will be 0. If the x minus 3, or x plus 3 is 0 rather, then x is going to be negative 3. Getting a little weird on myself here. So take that x plus 3 minus the 3 from both sides. You'll get x equal negative 3. On number 10, they both have a 2x in common, and on the inside you will have a 3x and a 2. Now on this one, you're still going to break it up into the two numbers. Alright, over here we're going to have 3x plus 2 equals 0, and you'll get a fractional answer. Don't be too intimidated by the fractional answer, and don't change that. You'll get x is equal to negative 2 over 3 as one of your answers. Alright? On number 11, you will notice that there is no 0. On both of these upper ones, we have a 0 to solve for. On this one, no 0, but there's still an equal sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one. I'm going to move that 14 to the other side. I've got 7x squared minus 14x, and now it's equal to 0. Since I've got it equal to 0, I can solve. They both have a 7. They both have an x. Left on the inside, after I divide that 7x from both terms, is going to be an x minus 2. And then I have two numbers that could equal 0. I have 7x, it could be 0. And then I have x minus 2. It could also be 0. Add the 2 to both sides, x could be positive 2. And divide the 7 from both sides, x could be 0. And now number 12 is one of those crazy ones. It is easier than the rest of them, but some people tend to do something crazy to it and make it harder. In this case, it is already set up. I have two numbers. I have 3x, it could be 0, and I have x plus 1, it could be 0. This is already factored. You'll notice it looks just like that last step before we finish on the other problems. It's ready to go right now. So on this one, x could be 0, and on this one, x could be negative 1. So we have two answers for each one of our problems. They look just like that. Alright, factoring the polynomials. I'm going to identify a, b, and c just one time. A is 2, b is 5, c is positive 3. Now I'm going to set up my x. 2 times 3 is 6. B is 5. I need numbers that multiply together to be 6, multiply together to be 6, and add to be 5. So 1 and 6, 2 and 3, those are the numbers that multiply to be 6, but only 2 and 3 will add together to be 5. So I'll get x plus 2, watching those signs, x plus 3. You'll notice right now, this does not end up looking like this. X times x is x squared, it's not 2x squared. So we got to do something. We got to divide by a. Make sure that you divide by a. Our a value was 2. You take a look and see if you can reduce here before you do anything crazy. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then this one doesn't divide evenly, so I'm going to swing it over. That's going to give me 2x plus 3. I'm going to rewrite that down here. It'll be alright. That's going to be my answer. X plus 1, 2x plus 3. On this next one, set it up. A is 1. C is negative 54, so I'm going to have negative 54, and then B down here will be negative 3. That's going to give me a negative 9 and positive 6, those are the numbers that work. So I'll have an x minus 9 and an x plus 6. Watch those signs. Looking for my a value, a was 1, so I've got to divide by a. Now a lot of you, because a is 1, you'll want to skip that step, and you can skip that step here, but I would always do it for the practice. It's always good to be in that habit. Now number 15, if you know the pattern, you can set it up right now as x minus 5, x plus 5. But some of you won't identify that pattern. The one thing you need to do if you can't identify that pattern is you've got to know that b is equal to 0. And when you set it up, you have 1 times 25 up top, and you have 0 on the bottom. You'll get 5 and negative 5, and you'll fill it in. If you were doing it this way, you need to make sure you divide by 1, divide by that a value. And it does not change it, but always a good practice. Always a good practice to be into. Now, this last one, I've got a is 1, c is 16, b is negative 8. So negative 4 and negative 4 are going to be the numbers I'm using. I'll get x minus 4, divide that a value off, and I'll have x minus 4 for this last part.